the Meridian's analysis of the compound, now formally designated XRC9, or the evil plant layer mineral in Ham's personal log, which he was not going to change regardless of what the program said, had taken 12 days and produced a report that Maddox read with the growing certainty of someone watching a picture become clearer one detail at a time, each detail more important than the last. The mineral's energy transfer coefficient was not an instrument error. It was real. The Continuance's Lathium research team had independently confirmed it with 3 separate methodologies, and their report forwarded to 3 and then to Maddox via the data-sharing arrangement that was becoming the closest thing to a standing protocol either side had established, used language that Maddox had never seen in a Lathium document before. The word remarkable, unmodified, in the 3rd line. The Not Nebula's connection to XRC9 was confirmed through spectral analysis of the post-degradation component field. The mineral under specific conditions of energy concentration and discharge. Conditions consistent with the wave discharge weapons that had destroyed the Sever. Produced a spatiotemporal distortion effect as a secondary output. The distortion accumulated. Given sufficient mineral mass and sufficient discharge events in close proximity, the accumulation could reach the scale of the Corridor 9 anomaly. Whether this was a known property being deliberately exploited or an inadvertent side effect of the weapon's operation, the Meridian and the Continuance had not determined. The report noted in the careful language of scientists who found a conclusion uncomfortable that either possibility had significant implications. Maddox had forwarded this section to 3 with a 1-line addendum. I think we need to be on that planet at the same time. 3's response, which arrived 4 hours later, agreed. A Lathian survey team will approach from the western range. We will not coordinate landing times. Separate approaches reduce detection probability. Maddox had shown this to Ham. Ham had said, "The Lathians are going back too, and they didn't tell us until now." "They're telling us now," Maddox said. "Aye, in a way that means we won't actually see them until we're already on the ground and possibly already in trouble. They have a point about detection probability. The Sentinels adapt," Ham said. "I noted this in the report, in large text, with underlining, which is why we're not using the same approach as last time," Maddox said. "Different entry point, different methodology, smaller initial footprint. And when the Sentinels adapt to the new methodology." Maddox looked at him. "We improvise," Maddox said. Ham closed his eyes for a moment. "Open them. Top of the kit," he said. "Electric-resistant gloves." Top. They came in from the southern approach this time, using the Cassian's upgraded sensor suite to map a route that kept them in the lower density canopy zones where the 400-kilogram fauna had not, on previous evidence, been active. The planet received them with the same extraordinary, inconvenient beauty it had shown Ham and Six. The amber canopy filtering light into warm gold, the blue-violet ground cover everywhere underfoot, the constant, layered sound of an ecosystem that had never been quiet in its entire existence. Ham put on his electric-resistant gloves before he was fully out of the shuttle. Maddox noticed but said nothing. Sable came down the ramp looking at the forest with the wide amber eyes of a Varani encountering something she was going to need time to process. Koss descended last and immediately oriented toward a cluster of the blue-violet ground cover with the focused attention of someone who had found exactly what they came for. "Koss," Maddox said. "We're not touching the plants yet." Koss pulsed. "I am observing. I am not touching. Good." Koss pulsed. "Yet." "Also good," Maddox said in the tone of someone who had decided not to pursue that particular thread. "Ham, walk us through the approach. You know this terrain." "I know it in the way that someone who nearly got electrocuted in it knows it," Ham said. Which is to say, reluctantly and with strong feelings. "That'll do," Maddox said. "Lead on." Ham led on, with the specific authority of a man who knew where the bad things were and was going toward them anyway, because the alternative was someone else going toward them without knowing. They had agreed on 3 objectives. First, Sentinel pattern analysis. Six and Ham's first visit had caught the Sentinels in response mode. reactive, pursuing. This visit wanted them in maintenance mode, whatever that looked like, operating their standard patrol pattern around the extraction complex before anything had been disturbed. Second, sample collection, specifically one of the packed crates they'd seen in the cavern, ready for shipment, which raised questions about where it was being shipped and by whom. Third, the communication tower. Its location had been triangulated from the recording Ham had made on departure, and it was approximately 3 kilometers northeast of the tunnel entrance. Not inside the mountain, but on its lower northeastern slope, in a position that would have been obscured from orbital scans by the mountain's mass. "We do the Sentinel observation first," Maddox said as they moved through the undergrowth. "We don't go near the tunnel until we understand the patrol pattern. Last time they came out of the complex when you were already inside. We need to know how far out the perimeter extends before they respond." "And the tower?" Sable asked. "After the complex. On the way out." He paused. "Or on the way out in a hurry, depending." "On the way out in a hurry," Ham said. "That's what it'll be. I'm putting it in the record now." Koss pulsed. "This planet has a very complex electromagnetic environment." "Is that good or bad?" Maddox asked. Koss pulsed. "Interesting. The ground cover generates a low-level bioelectric field across its entire distribution area. It is networked. The individual plants are not independent discharges. They are nodes in a connected system." Everyone stopped walking. Maddox turned to look at Koss. "The plants are networked." Koss pulsed. "Each cluster is in continuous low-frequency exchange with adjacent clusters. The network extends as far as my sensors can read." "Across the whole planet," Ham said. "The evil plant covers the whole bloody planet. We knew it was distributed widely from the orbital scan." Sable said. "We knew it grew a lot." Ham said. "We did not know it was a network. A network is different. A network implies information," Maddox said. "Or coordination," Sable said, quietly. They stood in the amber forest with the blue-violet ground cover everywhere around them, and thought about what it meant to be standing in a network. Koss pulsed. "It is not communicating about us." Yet, Ham said. "Brilliant. Right, let's keep moving." The Sentinel patrol pattern observed from the forest's edge over 2 hours was more complex than the emergency response they'd seen before. 3 units moved in overlapping circuits around the tunnel entrance and the mountain's lower slope, their paths intersecting at regular intervals that suggested a deliberate coverage geometry rather than random patrol. They moved with the same impersonal efficiency as before, not patrolling in the way a creature would, with attention and reaction, but executing a pattern the way a program executed a program. "They have a gap," Yara said, over the comms from the Cassian in orbit. She had the Sentinel tracking data from the surface team's sensors and was running the geometry from above. 2 of them converge at the eastern tunnel entrance every 14 minutes. The third passes the western approach every 9. But there's a 12-second window every 22 minutes where the triangle opens up at the northern face, and none of them are within visual range of the main cavern entry. 12 seconds, Maddox said. 11, if we're being precise, Yara said. "We're being precise," Maddox said. 11 seconds to get inside. You need to be 20 meters inside before the next Sentinel comes around the northern face, Yara said. 20 meters in 11 seconds. That's a sprint, Ham said. "That's your speed," Maddox said. "That's absolutely my speed. I'm just noting it." "Koss," Maddox said. "You're faster than any of us. I need you at the tunnel entrance, moving first, drawing the gap wider if any Sentinel varies from pattern." "Sable, you're with me on the crate." "Ham, you're on sensor coverage inside." "I need readings on whatever they're shipping, and I need them fast." Sable looked at the tunnel entrance. "The crates were in the cavern," she said. "That's further than 20 meters. We don't need to bring one out," Maddox said. "We need a reading and a sample from the packing material. If we can identify what the crate's exterior is made of, the composition tells us something about where it's going and what conditions it's designed to survive. And if the Sentinels come back early," Ham said, Then we use the plants and run, Maddox said. They adapted, Ham said. That's the whole point I keep making. They adapted. They barely flinched when I threw the plant at them. They adapted to a single discharge event from a single plant cluster, Maddox said. How did they adapt? Ham paused. The electrical impulse. They recalibrated for the specific frequency. Can you vary the frequency? Maddox said. Ham stared at him. He looked at the ground cover. He looked back at Maddox. If the plant network is connected, he said slowly, and if the discharge frequency varies between clusters, then triggering multiple clusters at different points in the network might produce a frequency spread the sentinels can't simultaneously recalibrate for, Maddox said. Ham was quiet for a moment. That is either very clever or complete rubbish, he said. I genuinely can't tell which. Neither can I, Maddox said. But let's go find out. Koss pulsed. The network discharge frequencies do vary between clusters. I have mapped 11 distinct variants in the immediate area. Ham looked at Koss. Did you already know that when Maddox was explaining his plan? Koss pulsed. I was waiting to confirm the hypothesis had been reached independently. That's... Ham started. 11 seconds, Maddox said. Window opens in 4 minutes. Koss, get to the entrance. The 11 seconds were exactly 11 seconds, which was the most perfectly timed 11 seconds Maddox had experienced in recent memory. They went in. The tunnel swallowed them. The sentinel came around the northern face 7 seconds after they cleared the entrance. Yara called it from orbit and they heard it in their earpieces while already moving. The cavern was exactly as Ham had described it. The extraction complex in operation, steady and patient, the compound moving through its processes with the automated certainty of a system that had been doing this for a very long time and saw no reason to stop. The bioluminescence from the compound itself gave the cavern a faint, shifting light. Not bright, but enough to see by, and it caught on the surfaces of the packed crates stacked against the far wall in a way that made them look like they were waiting. 20 of them, Sable said quietly, counting the crates. Each one is approximately. She assessed the dimensions. Large enough to require a cargo shuttle to move. And the exterior. She crouched beside the nearest one, running her gloved hand along the surface. This material, Ham, scan this. Ham was already scanning. The result came back in 4 seconds. It's not metal, he said. It's composite. I don't have a match in the database. But the thermal profile. He checked again. It's designed for deep cold. Hard vacuum. Extended transit in space. These aren't being moved by ground vehicle, these are going off-planet. The tunnel network, Maddox said. We came in from the eastern face. Ham. Does the network extend in any direction that would give ground access to an orbital launch position? Ham pulled up the tunnel mapping from the previous visit. The main passage goes north, he said. We didn't follow it all the way. We went east toward the cavern. If the northern passage continues far enough and the terrain opens up, there's a launch corridor, Maddox said. They're shipping this off-planet through the tunnels. No orbital footprint, no surface launch signature. To where? Sable said. The communication tower, Maddox said. Let's get the crate sample and get. Captain. Yara's voice in his earpiece was the specific calm she used when the news was bad, and she decided panic wouldn't help it. Sentinel-3 has deviated from pattern. It's not following the northern face route. It went inside. Inside the tunnel. 40 seconds ago. It's between you and the entrance. Maddox looked at Ham. Ham looked at Maddox. Sable, who had processed this information in approximately half a second, was already moving toward the cavern's alternative passages. The ones they hadn't explored. Other way out, Maddox said. Which way? Ham said. Any way that isn't that way, Maddox said, and followed Sable. They found an exit. A secondary tunnel branching south, narrow, clearly maintenance access rather than main passage. They went through it fast. Koss ahead because Koss was fastest, and the tunnel was dark enough that Koss's ambient electrical field, barely perceptible, gave them something to follow. The tunnel
sloped upward. It got narrower. Maddox's shoulder grazed the wall twice, and he noted that his shoulder would have opinions about this later. They came out on the mountain's southern slope, into amber forest, into the sound of the planet, and directly into the path of Sentinel-2, which had apparently also deviated from its pattern and was now here. Sentinel-2 looked at them. They looked at Sentinel-2. "Cos," Maddox said. Cos pulsed once. Directed outward, not through the collar device, not as communication, but as action. And every cluster of blue-violet ground cover within 20 meters discharged simultaneously at 11 distinct frequencies. Sentinel-2 systems argued with themselves at 11 distinct frequencies simultaneously. It was not the clean stop that a single discharge had produced before. It was messier. A stuttering, conflicted pause. The Sentinel's adaptation process overwhelmed by the spread, unable to recalibrate fast enough for all 11 variants at once. It didn't fall, but it stopped for long enough. "Move," Maddox said. "Now. North, toward the tower." "Yara, we have Sentinel deviation, at least 2 units off pattern. We're going for the tower and then extraction." "Find us a pickup point." "Looking," Yara said. "Find us one fast." They ran north.